Claudia.
I
If
see. Sorry, go ahead. I'm just seeing so many amazing questions over here on the chat. So
Yes, they will all. We will hopefully get to every single one of them. We'll fly through as quickly as we can. But everybody's familiar with Claudia, probably through the TED Talk. That's the introduction that a lot of people have. We reference One Little Pill, the documentary, all the time to people, particularly for partners, to explain the method. And Claudia's work as an actress is very, very well known. So if you do have any questions, put them in the chat. Matt, my co-host, will bring those to me, and I will allow you to talk directly to Claudia, who will give you her infinite wisdom. So while we do that, though, Claudia, I'll kick off with one thing. So we've recently, this year, launched a Discord server for the TSM meetups group, and we're approaching 400 people now, which is just, it's been a huge success, and it's growing very strongly. But we've got a lot of newcomers coming through there, and one of the great things is that they can get really good advice early on. And I know your journey and mine as well, we probably we didn't have all of that wisdom that's come now. So what would you say to people who are just starting out on TSM now?
Well, I would definitely say to listen to your elders and people who have been through this, and really, really try to adhere to the medication compliance. That's number one, because so many things can mess us up in that regard. In preparation really is the key to success. So that means getting yourself the little pill holder keychain. That means making sure your medication is always up to date and you've got your refills and you take it with you on your trips and traveling, making sure that you have a support system of some sort. Definitely keeping a drink log and joining these meetings. All this accountability and mindfulness really add up to a much more positive and successful TSM experience. And this is not hyperbole or conjecture. This is something that we've actually researched and done data research on, and found that people who keep a drink log for upwards of 2 years, people who have a TSM buddy, somebody who reminds them or asks them if they've taken their medication, somebody that they've come out to, all of this, or meetings that they attend on a regular basis, all of this leads to far more success. And it's absolutely, that's the data that we've obtained. So I would say those are the most important things, is to medication compliance, however you have to do that, whether it's a timer on your phone to remind yourself to take it, definitely changing habits and reading books on changing habits, finding different things. You must prepare for your new life, because your drinking will decrease if you are a responder. And it's so important to fill your life with wonderful hobbies and dreams and everything that you want to do, these beautiful activities. Also really focusing, once you get a hand on the medication adherence, your side effects have gone away, getting a handle on the dual aspect of TSM, which is increasing good endorphin producing activities while you're decreasing drinking. So that would mean starting to work out again, take better care of yourself, play with your children, your animals, engage in sensual activities, eating spicy food, planning little trips, anything that excites you and gets you going. Because once again, you are going to find that you have time on your hands, and time is what the lizard in your brain loves to tell you to use to drink. You've got 2 hours, let's go have a drink. You've got an afternoon that's Sunday and you're not busy, you've got nothing planned, let's get drunk. That's really, as they say in old Irish, the devil's hands, when you don't have things that are planned and you don't have a game plan, that's when that idea sneaks up and says, let's have a margarita. No, not if you've got a hike planned or a surfing lesson or anything wonderful that is better for your life. Let's face it, these things are all far more juicy and exciting than having yet another drink. But that's not what we hear in our brain when we don't have plans in place. So I would highly recommend you beginners to really think about all of these things I just mentioned and try and get as much support as you can. And there are so many videos on our YouTube channel. This beautiful community has created videos. Thrive, Katie, me. We've created so many resources for you. c3foundation.org. Go there. We have podcasts and we have TSM communities. We have the forum. We've got Facebook pages. We also have the whole TFM conferences with hundreds of hours of people, experts talking about TSM. So watch these videos. Instead of take a Wednesday night, and instead of having a bottle of wine, watch the videos, educate yourself. Start a book club, start singing, do whatever you can to stay busy and to start formulating a better, more healthy, more exciting, fun life.
Yeah, and that's a great reference point. So if one of the co-hosts can put the C3 Foundation link in there, because there are so many great videos that have been put out on there, and many of the common questions have been, you've put the effort into creating great
We've
content
answered
around
everything from side effects to redosing, everything. We've made videos on every subject you can possibly imagine. But I am here in person, so I'd be happy to answer any of those questions again.
Exactly. Well, Andrew had a question about social situations, because this is a big thing, and I'll just pass to you. I'll let you unmute Andrew and speak directly to Claudia in relation to
Thanks,
social
Dave.
situations.
Yeah, g'day, Claudia. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Andrew.
Really nice to meet you, and your video was really helpful. My question is, I find that when I take the now, my side effects have primarily gone now, which is great. But I definitely have a bit of a concern about not having those endorphins when I go out for a social situation. So I'm feeling that I'm a little bit reluctant to dose before, I've been 100% compliant, but I'm a little bit reluctant to say, want to go out to a restaurant or want to go out with friends, because I know that if I dose beforehand, it will probably mute my enjoyment of that situation. Have you found that gets a little bit better over time?
Absolutely. First of all, when what you're perceiving I'm just saying in a generalization, if I was to answer that question to somebody without knowing them, which I don't know you, is your perception of either who you are when you drink or how you act around other people is probably not exactly what other people see in you. What we perceive as like, oh, I'm no longer fun when I don't drink. A lot of people would come to me years later and say, you're actually far more interesting now that you're sober. I don't drink at all anymore. And at first I was always, finding my way. I was on TSM for 9 years and I've been abstinent for 5 years. So in those 9 years, I was sort of navigating my own way around social situations when I realized that I didn't have that knee-jerk response to want to get hammered. And I found that I actually became impatient in the beginning and judgy when I was drinking less. So I would look at my friends who were getting shit-faced and I would say, oh, that's sloppy, or they're loud, or they're repeating themselves. And of course, consciously, I knew that was me 6 months ago, but still being present in that moment and looking at these people, I found myself being like an ex-smoker going, oh, I can't believe they're drinking so much, which was ridiculous because I was what was known as a roaring alcoholic. So, it made no sense, but I guess that was my brain's response in the beginning. And I will tell you that it tapered, and that the full enjoyment of social situations absolutely came back. And in addition to that, Andrew, I'm sure I don't know if you've heard me talk about this before, but your relationship to alcohol, the way you feel on alcohol will change. So this blunting of that buzz or that feeling that you might be feeling now, that's going to dissipate down the line. That's not your forever feeling on naltrexone. Trust me. In year 2, suddenly I absolutely felt alcohol 100% the first sip I took, because the medication at that point, I was so used to it and it was sitting in the back of my brain, so to speak. That's my expression, not a clinical expression, but it's like I got used to it, and suddenly the naltrexone I still had an off button, but I could feel alcohol. I felt the buzz immediately, and it really scared me the first time. But then I realized, oh, this is normal. After I was speaking to doctors, they're like, oh yeah, your relationship and your physiological response to alcohol changes on the medication over the years, the longer you're on it. So please hang in there and understand a couple of things. When you're in a social situation and you feel that blunting or whatever you're feeling, kind of ask yourself, well, what am I afraid of just to feel this for now? Can't I talk to my friends? Clearly, I'm less distracted by the alcohol, so I should be enjoying their company more. Why don't I just enjoy the food and the talking, the discussions with my friends, and also enjoy the fact that I'm not out of the corner of my eye always looking for the bartender. Hey, always looking to how much is left in the bottle and how much order another one before I'm even done with this one. So if that chaos is a little bit quieter, what you might be feeling is actually a normal social response, like a normal social activity.
That's an excellent response.
Well, this is what normal people feel like when they go out with friends. They don't have that constant noise of, you got to have more, got to have this, got to have, hey, another shot. Oh, that's a whole party in your head that maybe is asleep right now. So what you have to do until your body really gets completely used to the medication is be in that moment and say, okay, what's the positive aspect of this social occasion? And let me tell you something, Andrew. One of the positive aspects of that might be in a couple of months from now that you get tired of Bob, because Bob is a jerk when he drinks and he's really loud and he repeats himself and he's kind of an ass. Or Judy's hitting on you right in front of your woman, and that's rude. And I don't want to be around Judy anymore. And this also happens. And we're afraid to let go. We're afraid of change. We're afraid of like, oh, now I got to get new friends. I'm on a medication. Isn't that enough? And so you just have to sort of calm down and take it easy and let it just slowly come in. And when you have these thoughts bubbling up, just as hokey pokey in LA as it sounds, just sit in that thought for a second and say, what is the real problem here? Seriously, what is the real problem here? That I'm not jumping up and dancing on the table, or I'm not hailing for this 7th round and spending $150 on drinks? What's the real problem? What am I uncomfortable in this social situation? Is it because I'm not numb? Because I'm seeing things clearly? Or is it just because I don't think I'm fun anymore and I don't know how to act? A lot of us were drinking since we were teenagers, and our social responses were based on alcohol. So we don't know who we are without alcohol. So I know that is a hugely loaded psychological answer to your very simple question, but there's so many layers of things to think about. There's so many layers to,
No, you're spot on.
Yeah, there's many layers there. And trust me, I could talk about that subject for about an hour. It's complicated, and it's beautiful too, because you're going to see really that you're far more interesting and far more patient, and you listen better when you drink less. And you're also going to find out who you enjoy being with and who your long-term friends will be, people you can grow old with. And if that means kind of weeding out some of the ones who haven't evolved as quickly as you have, then that's fine. That's just the process of life. You're getting better. You're doing something really good for yourself on a health basis, on an emotional basis, and for long-term life, just life in general. Your relationships will prosper, your health will prosper. So you're doing something really positive. It doesn't necessarily mean that everyone in your social circle is going to do the same thing at the same time.
Yeah, well said.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks, Claudia.
That was great.
That's really helpful.
Yeah, great question and great answer. And Amanda had a good question that pops up quite a lot in relation to things not being linear. So I'll just, you can unmute and speak directly, Amanda.
Oh, thank you. Hi, Claudia. Thanks so much for being here. You actually, I stumbled across your video and it's been a great saviour, although my progress is, I'm quite an impatient human. And my progress is not where I would like it to be. And I struggle with the non-linear side of it, and then all the old feelings coming back if I have a spike, those
guilt.
That guilt, shame, remorse shit from AA. And I know that works for a lot of people. It certainly increased my drinking, actually. And without a doubt, TSM has decreased it. I've had a spike I had a great week last week, and I'm trending down, which is the beauty of the graph. But I've had a spike this week and I'm just like devastated. I think I want it all over. I want it to stop.
No, I don't blame you, Amber. And Amanda, I'm so sorry, Amanda.
That's all right, no problem.
I saw the name Amber. Sorry. I understand what you're saying, but you just mentioned something really important, and I want to get back to that before you continue. You said you're keeping you saw the graph, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've decreased in how much and how long?
It varies. It's up and down, but I'm on week 13, and a good week it's down by more than 50%. Sometimes it's 25.
It's amazing.
I know. The
That's
spikes
incredible.
the spikes have never been up where I originally started from. And in fact, I think I may have been drinking more than I've confessed to, because I didn't count, right? So but now
Amanda, 13 weeks.
Yeah. And I have been compliant, and I can see, I have to just remind myself, the spikes are getting lower and the unit count is getting lower. So I'm trending in the right direction, but it's still painful to
Of course it is.
live like this.
Of course it is. But let's look at the positive thing. First of all, you are 3 months and change into something that is dealing with a drinking career of how long? How old were you when you started drinking?
14. So
14.
It's a 40 plus year.
40
career.
plus years. And so you've been drinking for 40 plus years, and you're upset that in 3 months you're not, what, sober? Come on. I mean, we're shrinking the neural pathways. You are shrinking your neural pathways, and your brain is trying to adjust still to the medication. And you're probably not even catching up with every other aspect of this whole method, which is changing our habits, understanding why we spiked. Who were you hanging out with? How was your emotional state? How was your hormonal state?
It's a time filler for me. I've now got all this time on my
What was I
hands.
just talking about? That's
Exactly. Exactly.
Yes, you got to make the plans, man. That's why that's why we say to beginners, you've got to nip this in the bud before it becomes a problem. So for you, Amanda, because this sounds like boredom and habit. And what are those primary rules? We know you never drink when you're hangry, hungry, angry, tired, lonely, bored, the HALT B. But in order to now, you have this beautiful base, this pedestal of wonderful compliance on TSM. You are only 3 months into this whole thing, and you've reduced in some weeks 50%, others 25%. Overall, you've probably reduced a good, let's be conservative, 30% overall.
Yeah.
Okay. Fan-bloody-tastic. I have people who've been on TSM for 2 years and they've reduced 10% and they're happy and frustrated. Okay. You've only been on it 3 months and you have a 40-year drinking career. And you started before your brain was even fully developed. So you probably have a truly ingrained drinking habit. So what you have to work on now, my dear, is breaking those habits and adding fun things to your life and working on the dual aspect of TSM, which is increasing those good endorphin producing activities and finding things to fill your time other than drinking, and making those plans by putting the alcohol elsewhere or making little rules. By the way, you're only 3 months in. Normally, if I'm coaching somebody, I wouldn't even recommend that they go for an alcohol-free day at this point, because I wouldn't want to put too much pressure on them. But I mean, you're 3 months in and you're upset at the occasional spike, which, by the way, I'm not negating. It's very painful because you're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, and then you're severely reminded of your old behavior, and that can be frightening. And also people start to think, oh, it's not working anymore. It's not working anymore. And they start to get really anxious. It is working. It's not linear. Everybody has spikes, whether it's Halloween or a fight with their boyfriend, or their mother-in-law comes in town, or they're just bored and they watched a movie and drank 2 bottles of wine, and they wake up so upset and hungover and they think it doesn't work anymore. But you have to look at your behavior on those moments when you spiked. You have to look at the reasons why you were drinking when you spiked. And that's what you really have to take the magnifying glass to now, because now you've got to start doing the other work. It's so embarrassing.
I do it because I can.
Yeah. Well, that's also the stubbornness of drinkers, of saying it's my right to drink.
Yeah.
Well, what you're really saying is it's my right to kill myself. Yeah, all of us have the right.
myself.
All of us have the right to poison ourselves. All of us have the right to eat ourselves to death, or to sleep with strangers and ruin our marriage. But do we do it on a daily basis? No. So when you're clinging to this right to drink, people, and believe me, I was guilty of it too. It was like, well, you can't take this away from me because I'm normal, but we're not normal. We wouldn't be here if we were normal.
Yeah.
And sometimes that normal thing can be that abnormal thing can be a good thing, because we also are motivated to look for a change and to improve things.
I've noticed that when I carry a breathalyzer because I have an interlock device and I need to make sure I'm sober in the morning. I've noticed that since taking the NAL, even with my alcohol consumption reduced, my processing of like I know my system inside out because I've had that interlock before I started TSM. My processing of the alcohol takes longer. So I say, for example, I would drink a bottle of wine and finish at 11, I don't know, whatever, 8 o'clock at night and be able to drive the next morning at 7. That's all changed now. I will blow over at that time. And does the NAL in combination with the alcohol together, does it have a negative impact on the liver, a greater impact on the liver than if you weren't drinking, if you were drinking off the NAL?
Well, that's the very first time I've ever heard somebody say that the effects of alcohol, that it wasn't being processed as quickly or at the same rate as without naltrexone. That's something I've never heard of, and you would have to really see. I mean, alcohol for most individuals, depending on if they've aged into this issue and they haven't checked it in a while, it metabolizes at the same rate, regardless of this medication.
Yeah.
I've never heard
it
that.
in a chat and no one else had heard of it either.
Yeah, I've never heard of that. I mean, now in regards to the liver, you would have to, according to Dr. Roy Escapa and Dr. Sinclair, they told me you would have to take upwards of 300 milligrams a day, every single day for a very long period of time to do the same
that's good to hear.
To do the same amount of damage that an over-the-counter sleeping pill or Advil PM or something.
Okay, that's great. That's great to hear.
Yeah.
I've been worried about that.
Yeah, no. The clinical trials, a lot of them were done with 100 milligrams, and there are people walking around that have been on Vivitrol for a decade. Vivitrol has naltrexone in your system every single day, 24 hours a day. They don't report liver damage. Nobody's ever overdosed or died from naltrexone. So
okay, great.
Yeah, I would be far more concerned about the adverse effects of alcohol than I would naltrexone.
Yeah.
Thanks, Amanda. That's fantastic.
You know, I think I have some good news here. I think I have an extra 20 minutes because I think this guy said he's running late. So do you mind if I just send a quick email?
Absolutely.
And then
go for it.
Yeah, then I have more. Then I've got more time with you.
Sounds like a gift that we will happily receive.
Yeah.
Just so you know, Megan, I'll come to you next. So I'll just ask you to unmute.
And I think now's a good time to let everyone know that if you currently are not on our Discord channel and you do not know about it, please check out our website at tsmmeetups.com. There's links on there for Discord. It is basically our 24/7 peer support group that is chat, audio, video, check-ins, on lots of topics that people have questions about. So please join us on there. I'm sure you'll like it.
And Dave, the order of questions that I have asked right now is Amber, Claire, Corbin, Steve, and Megan would be last.
No problem. I've just unmuted Megan, so I'll go back to the top. Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it. So, Megan, if you wanted to ask about some of the emotionally challenging components.
Sorry for accidentally skipping the line in front of other people. Thanks so much for being here with us, Claudia, and for answering all of our questions. I had previously been on naltrexone as a daily pill and found that it did nothing about a year ago when I first tried to start, quitting in earnest. And then when I started doing TSM and found this group and your TED Talk and many of the other resources, I was shocked at how the naltrexone was immediately really, really effective for me. I think the third time I took it, I went to a movie theater that served alcohol and I ordered a margarita. And by the time the movie was over, they were dropping our checks off and I had 3 sips of it. The movie was exciting, but I had just completely forgotten that there was a cocktail in front of me, which I never thought that would happen in my life. And so I found that compliance and, you know, reducing the units in that way, it has been like I'm lucky that it's been pretty effective pretty quickly. What I'm actually struggling with right now is just this whole like second half of it, which is a little bit different than other times that I've tried to quit, which have been, you know, I've done some AA, I've tried to do total abstinence. And that's almost been a little bit like psychologically simpler, because it's just like, no, we can't think about this. Like, you can't go to the bar. We're going to take a different route home, so I don't see the liquor store. Like, we just never ever think about it. And I'm going to avoid the concept of alcohol the same way that I like was using alcohol to avoid my feelings, or whatever you want to say there. And even just the act of like, if I have a craving, I'm like, okay, we're going to like try to ride it out for a little bit, but then I'm going to take an naltrexone, going to wait 45 minutes. If I still want it in 45 minutes, then we're going to go buy a bottle of wine and see how it goes. But even just that hour, like just sitting and thinking like, why do I feel like drinking today? Like, is this actually going to be fun? Like, am I upset about something? And I've like just found having to confront that a very different process than other times that have been strictly abstinence based. And I'm finding it a little more like emotionally challenging than I was expecting, not in like a terrible way, just in a like, oh, these are some new feelings and like some new things I have to think about.
Yes.
So I was just wondering if you had any advice.
Oh, I have a lot of thoughts on that, because here's the thing about when I was in AA and in abstinence based you know, rehab facility or whatever. What happens then is your brain is completely overwhelmed and busy with the fact that you can't drink, and everything is you can't drink. And the activity of having to rearrange our life to hang out with people who don't drink and make new friends and go to these meetings, and you know, that can become a sort of addiction on its own. And it's also maybe a little bit easier to wrap our heads around, because it feels like punitive measures, like I'm being punished, I can't drink, and that's pretty clear because I'm bad. Now, what TSM does, and what is so interesting about what Dr. Sinclair was always saying to me, is he said, you know, there are no bad rats. There were no bad rats in my Skinner boxes. There are no bad people. You're simply wired incorrectly. So when we give you this magic medication, which is going to take away the compulsion to drink to excess, what are you left with? You're left with the reasons why you drank and what you obtained from alcohol, the deadening of those emotions, those feelings. I've always said that I thought the best result from a therapy session or an AA session would be if you're not craving, because the state of craving is all encompassing. And so in being in forced sobriety, you are in a constant state of craving, and you're really thinking about what I have to do in order to not drink. So you're not thinking about your feelings. It's almost like another buffer away from that. Whereas when you're on naltrexone and you're paying attention to the movie and you only had 3 sips of the margarita, and then the movie finishes and you realize, wow, I'm completely lucid, I'm coherent, and I'm thoughtful, and I didn't drink, so I'm not dead. Now what? Now I got to think about my life. Movie's over, drink is not in me. Now I've got to think about all of these things. So, and by the way, I'm not putting that on you, like suddenly the movie ended and you were thinking about your life. I'm giving you an example. What happens is that we're actually now far more able to process these emotions that we were before we were stomping down. We're far more able to, because the compulsiveness, that obsession with the alcohol, procuring it, drinking it, using it, hiding it, lying about it, all of that is gone. We're allowed to drink. We're given permission to drink as long as we take this pill and wait an hour. That's only fixing the biological aspect of this issue. That's only addressing the biological aspect of this issue. This is not going to make you suddenly put up boundaries or make a better relationship with your husband or make you a better communicator with your parents. None of that's going to happen with this magic pill. What happens is it makes you jump right into recovery. And I think that might be where you are. You're sort of head first diving into recovery without all of the noise of enforced abstinence and meetings and oh, I can't go here, I can't go there, and I'm not allowed to drink because I'm bad. Oh, I might fall off the wagon. All that's gone. And all you have to do is take this pill before you drink. But now you're forced with the thought of saying, why do I have to drink on a Wednesday night? Why do I have to drink on Monday night? Why do I have to drink when she's around me? Why do I have to drink when I come home and hide it from my spouse? I don't, all of these things, suddenly you're wondering why? Why do I need this if I'm not really craving it anymore? The biological issue is gone. Now I'm just stuck with, why am I shoving this stuff in my body? Because it's my right to? Okay, or because I'm going to dinner? Come on. I mean, really, when you look at this from a normal perspective, like a normal person looking down on us right now and saying, oh, this is like a little, Skinner box experiment. Why are these people doing this 5 nights, 7 nights a week? Why don't they just go for a walk and have a conversation with their kids? I don't get it. Because we're not normies. So what TSM puts you in a state of is kind of being a normie around alcohol. But your emotional state hasn't caught up with that, with the biological state. You see what I'm saying? You're not, your two halves are still sort of not equal yet. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it does. Thank you for that. It's really weird. I think that, I've like tried to be sober so many times before. And it is really weird for the first time just being like, well, I could have that, but like, why do I want it is just a completely new experience for me, as opposed to just that like hard, absolutely not, which in like, and it seems that this is very common. A lot of times I've been like really good about being really gung-ho about being totally sober, and I'll get to like 6 weeks and then I'll be like, I can have one. And then that turns into like an epic bender. And that has been like my pattern of sobriety bender. And so it's just so weird being like, well, if I really want that, I can have it. But if I take this pill and then I have to think about like why I want it and do I still want it? And like, does this taste good? Am I having fun? Is just such a like completely different experience from every other time that I've tried to quit.
Well, you were the kind of drinker that I was too. I would, and the first 3 months of sobriety were always my honeymoon period, my golden child, rainbows and unicorns and butterflies and the whole bit. I felt so good and looked so good. And then that little whispery bastard says, have a drink. You're not an alcoholic. You got 3 months of sobriety under your belt. Come on, baby, have a drink. You'll be fine. Just one, then you're off to the racetracks. That's the insidiousness of addiction. So now that that's going to be off the table, you don't have to pile all this stuff on your plate. First of all, why don't you just try complying for a while and let the feelings come up as they would naturally? You're not on any sort of schedule. I think what you might be getting is a little bit overwhelmed with thinking that you have to do all this work like you did when you were in sobriety, in a different type of sobriety. The work will come naturally. I can tell you that I wish I would have done that internal work a lot sooner than I did, because I was on TSM for 9 years and I never asked myself why do I have to drink when I see my family? That's not normal. I just drank when I saw my family because that's what I did. So I think that the slow baby steps toward these recognitions of our emotions and of our triggers and of our feelings around alcohol, and also understanding that we are kind of emotionally, in a way, stunted from the time that we started to drink alcohol, because we used alcohol to deal with emotional situations, whereas most normal people who didn't deaden themselves with alcohol actually went through the normal pains and process of life without a substance deadening their emotions. So we're kind of catching up to that teenage self, or that self that we were when we were in our early 20s, or, for a lot of us, even younger. And so I would just be kind to myself if I were you. I would just say, look, I'm taking the pill. I'm joining this meeting, this TSM meetup group. That's enough for now. And, and if I wonder why I want to drink on a Wednesday night, you just ask yourself one simple question. Just say, is this a craving, a genuine craving, or is this a memory or a trigger, or am I just bored? because then you can address that in a logical way and say, let me go for a walk and see if this is a real craving. What's really important, and what Dr. Sinclair said, and it was so basic, he said, just only drink when you're genuinely craving alcohol in the beginning, please. That because they really wanted to sort of address your particular type of craving with the medication. So if you can just do that for the first few months, I mean, obviously, if you go to a wedding or something and you want to have some champagne with your friends, then take the tablet. That's a completely justifiable cause. but don't, you know, if it's Wednesday night and you're just bored and you don't know what to do and you normally drink, it's not a reason to drink. Those are just the smallest things you can do without overwhelming yourself. But it sounds to me like this emotional sort of well of emotion is coming up because you're not blocking your feelings with excess alcohol, but you're also not blocking your feelings with this enforced sobriety. So you have a new experience of recovery right now. You can have your cake and eat it too. It's just what kind of cake you're going to eat and how much. You know, that's and sometimes giving somebody the option overwhelms them even more. And that's, you know, when you give somebody the choice of saying, no, you're allowed to drink, that's like, oh, wait a minute, I liked it better when you said I couldn't. That was easier. So that's just for you to slowly and lovingly examine your relationship to alcohol, and don't force yourself. This is not, there's no competition. This is not a race. You've done the first wonderful step in the right direction, which is you're motivated to take the tablet. And that's amazing. You know,
Yeah,
pat
that's
yourself
fantastic.
on the back.
That's great, Claudia, and that relates to so many people and the way that they're experiencing things in our meetings as well. I'm sure a lot of people relate very heavily to that. Amanda had a question about nallovers. I'm not sure whether you're familiar with that term. I'm sure you have heard it several times. Go for it, Amber.
Hi, Claudia. Thank you so much for being here. So my question's about the naltrexone hangovers. I'm only about a month into TSM, and prior to that, I could drink, you know, a whole bottle of wine or more, be totally fine in the morning. I'm finding now with TSM, it takes about half that amount, and I'm having the worst hangovers of my life. So any advice you can give on how to work through those? I'm so new right now that taking a day off drinking is kind of daunting to me. So I'm trying to work up to that. But in the meantime, if you have any tips for anything to do for
Definitely. Couple of questions. When you feel that feeling the next morning, is it a headache or is it nausea, or can you describe the feeling?
For me, it's extreme fatigue, headache, little bit of nausea, no vomiting. Yeah, just kind of that nauseous, headachy, really tired feeling.
Okay, so one thing is you definitely really have to hydrate in the first few months on naltrexone. You've got to flush it out of your system. And if that means getting up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom because you've had 2 big glasses of water before bed, that's just what you're going to have to do in order to feel your best the next morning. I would also ask you how your diet is and if you're keeping up your blood sugar levels throughout the day. Any new medication can cause spikes and irregularity in the feelings of your, sometimes it'll keep you also from eating regularly or having enough protein. So whether you're vegan or vegetarian or whatever, just ensure that you're getting enough protein throughout the day, that you're staying hydrated throughout the day, that you also watch your caffeine intake to not drink too late in the afternoon, so that's not contributing to your headaches or your dehydration. And I would definitely recommend making sure that you're eating with the tablet. You have to eat. This goes for all of you, regardless of whether you're 1 week or 10 years into TSM. You have to eat when you take the pill, no matter what. That is just if you don't eat, you're going to end up with a rip-roaring headache for a lot of people, or nausea. So if it's really bad, what some people do for the first few months is they take a big glass of water and maybe an Alka-Seltzer or a swig of Pepto-Bismol before they go to bed, and then they wake up and they feel great. They feel great. It's a matter of balancing your electrolytes. So if you get those little packs of Emergency, even, you can down one of those in the morning. But I think you might be fine with just the water and maybe a little swig of Pepto or something before you go to bed, or an Alka-Seltzer. These are all over-the-counter remedies, or even fresh ginger, you know, grated up in a tea. The most important thing is that you eat with the medication, and that you also just watch your entire diet while you're processing this in the first few months. If you took it the first couple times that you took it and you didn't notice that, I mean, we have to rule out a lot of things, like, are you withdrawing from alcohol? If you're a daily drinker and you're drinking less, that could be alcohol withdrawal. And once again, we go back to, then you've got to eat regularly and you've got to stay hydrated, because that'll help you a lot. And you might need an over-the-counter anti-nausea medication just for a couple of weeks. I find that a lot of people who have splitting headaches on a new medication, or when they start decreasing their drinking, it helps for a couple of weeks to take a couple Tylenol PMs at night. When they go to bed, they wake up feeling better. I'm not recommending these things. I'm not a doctor, but I'm saying all of that is better than not complying or getting caught up in the feeling of like, oh my God, this is going to be forever. It's not going to be forever. So I can assure you, I've never known anybody who had side effects that lasted for very long at all. And this whole aspect of a NAL over did not exist when I started TSM, and it really hasn't existed except for the last maybe 3 years. And people started on social media talking about NAL overs and hangovers from the naltrexone. I have gone to every doctor in every country and said, is this even physiologically possible? And every doctor has said to me, it's because they're withdrawing from alcohol. And I say, well, no, not all of them were heavy drinkers. Not all of them were daily drinkers. And then they all say the same thing. They say, well, naltrexone doesn't have that effect. And if they're having side effects, the side effects should go away within a few weeks. So that said, I'm not saying that your concerns are not legitimate. I'm not saying that everybody out there isn't physiologically different, but I'm saying there's ways to combat it. You can also, instead of pushing yourself to get an alcohol-free day, you can maybe push yourself to go for a little walk in the late afternoon, which will give you some sense of this before you take the tablet to drink that night. I presume that you drink in the evenings, or are you around the clock drinker?
Evening only.
Evening only. Okay, so maybe if you could get, if you could ask yourself if you're physically capable of it to go, you know, on a nice walk in the afternoon, do something that would feel good, maybe even a bath, something that will relax you, and something that will help start the whole process of bringing up your natural endorphins, increasing your dopamine system naturally. We also want to reduce cortisol. Alcohol creates cortisol in the body. And how you do that is by maintaining a steady diet of, like I said, protein-rich diet, eating small meals all day long. You have to understand, not only are you decreasing your alcohol, but you are introducing a new medication to your body and to your brain. But the good news is, it's not going to do any damage. It's going to help you, and your brain is going to get used to it. You just have to get through these next few weeks. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. So just try and use those tips of the over-the-counter stuff and the hydration. And I really urge you to get a nice cup of herbal tea or something before bed, even if it means you have to get up in the middle of the night, because that has helped so many people. Chamomile, rosehip, anything just to stay super hydrated at night, and then the headaches in particular seem to go away. And take a little slug of Pepto or something and see if that helps the nausea. Most importantly, we want this to be a really good process for you. We want you to reduce your drinking and feel great. And I can assure you, if you just stick to it and you continue doing what you're doing, these side effects will pass. These hangovers will pass. I promise you.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Amber. Much appreciated. And Claire had a question that, again, is a very common theme around sleep. So I'll just ask you to unmute there, Claire. Yeah, sleep is always a big topic on our calls. Claudia.
Hi, Claudia. Thanks so much for coming tonight. Yeah, so my question was, we know that kind of sleep and alcohol are, very interrelated. But for some of us, we had sleep problems before we developed AUD, and probably our sleep problems contributed a lot to the development of our AUD, because we were using it as a means to fall asleep at night or to stay asleep, combination of those things. And so that now, while taking naltrexone and, slowly reducing drinking intake, we're left with our original problem, which is, some combination of insomnia and whatnot. And then, and when you have, when you have an important meeting the next day and you got to do a presentation or a pitch or whatever the case may be, the decision between drinking and being able to fall asleep or not drinking, it becomes a tricky one. So
Yeah.
it's I would
I
just any advice on that point, you know,
yeah.
I know you're not a doctor, but like the whole thing is like I don't find doctors very helpful in this regard. You know,
Well,
I've gone to doctors about this and they've given me an app, which I'm like, well, thanks for nothing. So
yeah, most doctors in the addiction world would probably give somebody like you gabapentin for the first few months because it mimics alcohol, but it also relaxes you into a state of sleep and it will help your sleep issues. The problem with that is it's a temporary fix. Any of
yeah,
these medications, as you know, are highly addictive. Ambien is, Valium is given to people coming off of alcohol. The gabapentin is a very real therapy. A lot of people use it, but once again, it's not going to address your core sleeping issue that you've had your whole life. So,
right.
what I would strongly urge you to do, first of all, because I had horrific sleep, but I was also, as I look back on it now, a hormone-induced drinker, meaning I would drink when I was PMSing. I drank when I was perimenopausal, all of that stuff. Most of my drinking was hormone related. So for all of you women out there, I've said it before and I'll say it again because I see it every single day when I'm coaching people, is that hormones and women and sleep are so interrelated. So I don't know what age you are, but I would strongly urge you to check that. I would check my thyroid and my hormones, and I would get all my levels right. Even if that meant going on bioidenticals. The second I went on bioidenticals and reduced my drinking, suddenly I could sleep. And I had really, the quality of sleep you get from passing out from alcohol is not even sleep. There's some wonderful British documentaries on that subject. They show people sleeping and they are doing all the tests on the sleep, and the quality of sleep is non-existent. You never hit REM. So when you talk about making a presentation the next day, you can drink a fifth of Jack Daniels and make yourself pass out. You're still you're gonna be cloudy and you're gonna feel like crap, and your brain is not going to be functioning on that level. You know that. So you have it's like the worst. What do I take? The worst of this? Do I not sleep, or do I have really crappy alcohol sleep, which isn't even sleep? So I understand the dilemma. I understand it can be extremely frustrating. This is why sleep therapists and all of this sleep empire, this multi-billion-dollar sleep empire exists, because people can't sleep, especially in the United States. We have some of the worst sleep issues in history going on right now because of anxiety and because of people's sleep hygiene and because of the way that people allow their animals and children into their bed. And there's a myriad of issues. And one-on-one, I'd be happy to privately explore that with you, but I can say that there are other options. I had to learn how to meditate. I found a really great person's voice that I enjoyed listening to that calmed me. No, I finally found one person that didn't drive me batshit crazy when I would listen to them, and I listened to her, and she actually put me to sleep. This British woman that did meditation tapes, but it took me months to find somebody that I didn't find annoying. Then, of course, the hormone thing helped enormously. My diet helped enormously. The lack of caffeine in the afternoon and the protein before bed and all of that stuff, which I really researched and did all the homework on. I was working with a sleep therapist to help people on TSM, actually, and unfortunately he ended up taking another job somewhere. But I was going to introduce this for people with sleep issues so that we could start making more videos about it. It's really a matter of perfecting your sleep hygiene, finding out what's going on with your hormones, taking a deep look at your diet and finding the best food for you, and taking maybe a temporary transitionary over-the-counter tablet for a while, the Tylenol PMs, the Unisoms, that kind of thing, in a temporary manner for a month or so, before then going into the prescription route, because the prescription route is a dodgy route as well. It's something you're going to have to wean yourself off of anyway. So why start it? You know what I mean,
Well,
Claire?
yeah, not to get too much into it, but uh I hit a pretty significant phase of burnout for a couple of years after working kind of somewhere between 70 to 80 hours a week, and it was at that time that I kind of cracked, and I started taking prescription sleep medication every day. Up until that point, I was just taking it kind of as needed and whatever else. But just to kind of get through that time professionally, I did crack, and then now I'm left with two problems. Well, more than two problems, but two very interrelated problems. And so it's really hard to know how to progress with TSM while at the same time, I kind of feel like I need to make two steps forward with TSM, but then if I don't make a step forward with sleep, then I'm kind of restricted in what I can do with TSM, because if you've lost half of your day because you've slept in, because you've taken a tranquilizer to put you to sleep the night before, then you're not going to have a great upregulation day.
Right.
And
But also if you drink to excess and you're not having REM sleep, and then you're waking up with anxiety and cortisol shooting through your body at 3 o'clock in the morning because the alcohol is burned off and the sugar is kicked in, that's not good either. So I would encourage you to stay the route with TSM and decrease your drinking. Decreasing drinking overall, even though it's painful in the beginning and it's going to disrupt your sleep, because that's your go-to mechanism to fall asleep and to maybe wake up in the middle of the night and then take another shot to stay asleep. That's not sleep. You're not getting real sleep. That is an illusion, and it's making you exhausted. I mean, I can hear it in your voice. You're exhausted. You sound exhausted, and my heart breaks for you, because I've been there. And it's horrible. Lack of sleep is devastating, and it affects every aspect of your life. So all of these things that I'm saying may sound like little, safety pins to put in a giant fissure or rip, but built up and combined, you can find a way to get at least a few hours of quality sleep. And reducing your drinking, taking the naltrexone maybe a little bit earlier if the naltrexone is adversely affecting your sleep, or trying not to drink alcohol with too much sugar in it. But reducing your drinking overall for the rest of your life will eventually help regulate your sleep, period. And it will help you also focus on finding a way to fall asleep naturally. That's not going to happen with alcohol. And it's a losing battle, because you're going to need more and more and more alcohol as you get older to fall asleep. And because your tolerance is going to get up.
Yeah, it's a good reminder, Claudia, that there is that illusion of it's such a great sedative to get to sleep, but it robs you of the quality of sleep, and it's a vicious cycle.
It's a totally vicious cycle,
I like the question on behalf of Corbin. So he was asking any predictions from you about when TSM will become more mainstream?
Any prediction if TSM will become more mainstream?
More mainstream. So most people have had a bit of frustration that they were late to find it. And they think, and when they do, they think, why wasn't this around earlier?
That always cracks me up, because I mean, when I started TSM, and I've said this ad nauseum, I mean, it started and nobody was doing it. There was one doctor in the United States that was giving it to his clients, and it wasn't even publicly known. So there was no book, there was no movie, there were no groups, there were no this kind of group. So when you say it's not, when is it going to be mainstream? This is mainstream to me, man. I mean, there was nothing before. There were no pill holders and Facebook groups. So there was nothing. In 2009, when I started TSM, there was nothing. There was one guy that I knew from Dr. Escapa that did TSM, and he had been on it for a couple of years. There was like one other person. So you are not alone. And this is not, this is a decade later, this is far more mainstream than it's ever been ever. And the reason why it's not more mainstream is because it doesn't make financial sense to the people who rely on the revolving door business model of rehab, period. They want you to stay sick. They want you to be relapsing time and time again, so they can charge you another $100,000. And with AA, it's a whole different ball of wax, because they just you have to give up something and become a part of that community. So, there are reasons, and it's my way or the highway with a 12-step program. You can't introduce something like this. So we have all these people naysaying on this side, and then we have really big money behind the other side. The team rehab is violently against team TSM because it's cheap, affordable, accessible, and it works. So yeah, it's not mainstream because it's generic. The medication is generic. The second somebody patents it and sticks a little TSM stamp on it and makes it as expensive as Viagra and puts that kind of money behind it, promoting it on infomercials at night for erectile dysfunction medication or something, then we'll be more well known. But then the average person won't be able to afford it. So in some ways, this grassroots movement of ours is actually better for everybody. We're slowly getting it into places. And if someone's really motivated to get better, they're going to Google, how do I quit drinking without quitting drinking? Or how do I, what's an AA alternative? And I guarantee you, this will come up. And so in that regard, it is mainstream now because people are finding it. There are thousands of us around the world. We have global groups, for crying out loud, where there's, we have C3 Foundation Canada being formed, Australia. There are resources now where there were none before. Now, if you're asking me when it's going to become more acceptable, that's a different question, because what you're dealing with is the morals and the belief system of people who read a 120-year-old book to get better from alcohol. Nobody's ever going to be able to say, they're not going to say to you, oh, bravo for you for drinking alcohol when you're an alcoholic. That's just counterintuitive as hell. So what we have to deal with is other people's perception, and what we have to deal with that is education and knowledge and intelligence and calmness, and just say, look, you may not understand it, but if you want to learn about it, go to c3foundation.net, which is the medical page, or go to c3foundation.org, and you could read up on it. There's a lovely little film, less than an hour long, called One Little Pill. You can watch that. And if you don't care to learn about it, but you love me, then just know that I'm doing something to decrease my drinking, and it's working. And I'm sure you wish me well. That's all we can do, is come from a place of wellness. And the more people see us improving, and the more they see you happier and glowing, and your relationships improving, the more they'll realize that this little TSM thing might be around to stay.
It's interesting. Every time that pops up, I try to remind people that we all owe a debt of gratitude to you and the C3 Foundation, because of all the groundwork around trying to raise awareness among the medical community and advocating for it. And even without knowing it, when people get a response on a Google search, it's because of all of that groundwork. And before we do leave, I want to ask you about C3 Foundation and so on. And you're always in need of donations to help the great work that you guys do, and the link will be in the chat there for everybody on the call. That when people are sitting around saying, what can I do to help raise awareness?
What you can do is you can become a hero. I mean, that's seriously, heroes are like, $10 to $25 a month. It's less than the cost of a bottle of wine for most people. And we are begging people to become heroes, because I personally financed C3 Foundation in the first few years of it. That's not sustainable for an unemployed 58-year-old actress. Plus, it's just not sustainable. So everything I've done, we've raised money, and, I have one employee, Jenny. That's it. It's two women running this whole show. So when people say, "Oh, you saved my life," I'm like, "Okay, well, can you become a hero? Because what is your life worth?" We're literally we are so grassroots that we barely make ends meet every year. And last year was particularly hard because we lost 3 of our sponsors. But in any event, yes, I would appreciate if anybody would become a hero or make a small donation. It's kept us alive for a decade, and I deeply appreciate any support that anyone can give.
Yeah, please consider that, guys, and anybody that is currently sponsoring C3 Foundation, and you're working between those, whoever's the banner on there and supporting, give them a try as well. I think I won't take a stab at who I think it is, because I don't have it in front of me, but the people who are supporting you, we should support them because we're all in this together.
Yep.
Steve, talking about ways to speed up a TSM journey, and I know we need patience, but any lessons that you may have, Steve, go for it.
Yeah, hi, Claudia.
Hey, Steve.
It's great to have you on. My question is, starting with the assumption that the person is 100% compliant, and your own experience and drawing on the experience of helping so many other people, what is a thing or a couple of things that a person can really do to speed up the process of hopefully reaching extinction?
Okay, so that's a very common question, and it's our natural brain that we're so sick of this thing that has been stealing days and nights of our life and robbing us of relationships and work and good quality of life, that we just want it to be over with. And I understand that, I get that. The fastest way to extinction is compliance and doing all the rest of the work that we talk about. So it's not just keeping a drink log and being accountable. It's really understanding our relationship to alcohol and what it brought into our life and what it took from our life. And if you can hold a mirror up to yourself very, very clearly, that means taking time, maybe once or twice a day, to really sit and think about this, and think about why we drink and what it brought to us and what it took away from us, and start really acknowledging our knee-jerk responses to life and to emotion in general and to anything that's disruptive. It would take me understanding why you drink in order to teach you how to accelerate this process, because it could be that you are a habitual drinker, and then we would work on breaking your habits. It could be that you are an emotional drinker, and then we would work on trying to, find other ways to subdue or to process emotions that would be in a more natural, holistic manner. So it could be that you're drinking to suppress trauma. So that's a whole nother ball of wax. We'd have to unpack that. So in a very general way, without knowing the details of you as an individual, or why you drink, or how long you've drunk, or when you started drinking, or even what you drink, or how often you drink, without knowing any of those details, I would say to the impatient person on TSM who just wants this problem to be rid of it, I would say that the deeper you understand yourself and your relationship to alcohol, the faster you're going to come to the conclusion that it doesn't serve you anymore. And that took me an awfully long time. It took me a very long time to realize that all of this chatter and everything about, oh, it's my right, and oh, I can drink when I socialize, and oh, it's so important for me to be able to drink with this person, and oh, and well, gosh, steak only goes with red wine, and all of these excuses. Really, at the end of the day, I came to the conclusion that alcohol didn't serve me at all, and that most of the negative things in my life were associated with alcohol. So that took me a long time to find out, because I wasn't doing the observational work. I wasn't holding the mirror up to my own life and to myself and my own behaviors and my own reactions and my own triggers and my own past and my own trauma, my own childhood. I wasn't doing any of that. So I'm asking all of you to do that now. In the beginning of TSM, in the first 2 weeks of TSM, in the first 2 months of TSM, in the first 2 years of TSM. And if you haven't done it, start now. Because the only way you're going to get to the root of the problem, once you get rid of the biological aspect of it, once you reach extinction, okay, let's say you're on this great hurry to reach extinction. Well, what if I said, okay, you can reach extinction next week, but you find yourself still drawn to drinking in certain situations, but you don't know why? Technically, you've reached extinction. You don't have any more cravings. Well, then why are you drinking? But yet people reach extinction and continue drinking for years, like I did. Why? Well, because it's socializing. Okay, well, I managed to socialize without drinking. And I'm not telling you all to go sober or anything like that. I'm not lecturing you on that in regard at all. I'm just asking you to ask the normal questions that come up when you say, okay, I've reached extinction, now what? why you still have to ask yourself, why are you drinking? Otherwise, you're going to fall back into the same habits and triggers and motivations that you did before. So the accelerated route to extinction is sometimes not as good as the slow route to extinction, because the slow route to extinction allows us to really sit in our feelings and understand our relationship to alcohol. And that makes a really present mind. That takes a present mind. So in other words, when you're driving and the thought comes into your head, oh, I should drink, but yet you're 3 months into TSM and you're not craving alcohol, you have to ask yourself, why does the drive home from work make me want to drink? Aha, because I always drink when I get home. Why do I always drink when I get home? Well, because I'm in a miserable marriage, or my kids drive me crazy, or whatever the myriad of reasons are. So if you just are on autopilot and you say to yourself, oh, I really want to have a drink, I'm going to take my pill now in the car on the way home, you're not doing any of the work. So I hope that in that very long, sort of weird answer, you got something out of it.
No, it was actually very good answer.
Yeah, I mean, the accelerated route, all of the things that you're doing, probably breaking your habits, establishing what your habits are, hiding the alcohol so you can't see it, changing up your days when let's not take it at 6 p.m. Let's delay it till 7:30 p.m. Let's go for a walk before we really decide to take the pill. All of that stuff, those are little tips and tricks that you can take to accelerate yourself into extinction. Those are all things you can do. On a Wednesday night, I'm going to go do this instead of drinking. I'm going to have an alcohol-free day and go for a run so I get the endorphins. All of those are things you can learn about online. Those are motivational things that we do to accelerate our way to extinction. Those are the easy ones. What I'm asking you to do is take a look inside and do the other kind of work of saying, why I understand why I want to reach extinction, because I'm just sick of this and I'm tired of craving and I'm sick of alcohol ruling my life. But what am I going to do when I get rid of my cravings and alcohol doesn't rule my life? Then what? Nothing around you is going to change. Your relationships are still going to be in place. So you have to do the changing. Once the biological aspect of addiction is removed from your life, you're still you. So we have to work on understanding why we drink, what alcohol brings to our life, and who we will be without it, or with less of it.
I suspect a lot of what you just said then will relate to Dill's question, which will be our last one to give you time to meet your next commitment. But Dill's 8 months in. You can unmute there, sir, and ask your question directly.
Hello. Okay. Give me 1 second to see where I am. I'm at the gym, so I wasn't
That's
at the
great.
gym in the past. I wasn't at the gym in the past. I was at home and then I drove in the car and now I'm here, but it's fine. I won't be long. You already kind of answered my question, I guess. I feel like I've plateaued, but I'm also kind of happy about it. I'm having about one bottle a night. I used to have up to 40 shots in November of last year. So having just one bottle of wine of 14% is much better than what I was doing. But I'm plateaued, and I guess I kind of, is it the mirror thing? I just have to focus on what my trauma response is and something like that. I feel like that's the answer for me, because I feel like I can't get it lower than one bottle a night.
Well, that's not true. There's a bunch of different ways. And the physiological aspect of that, a lot of doctors at this point would say, can you try 75 to 100 milligrams for a couple of weeks, a higher dose to maybe give yourself a little jump start. If you've been doing this since last November, that's a tremendous reduction in drinking. It's unbelievable, from 40 shots to one bottle.
Great.
It's pretty bloody amazing.
It's pretty great. So I'm
pretty
happy.
staggeringly amazing. You're like the poster child for TSM. So
Yeah.
I would say that's pretty remarkable and a really, really rapid reduction in alcohol. So you might actually be faced with a lot more of the internal process of recovery than a lot of other people who don't reduce so radically quickly, because at 40 shots a day, that you were basically not dealing with any emotions whatsoever.
No, and it wasn't that long. Like, I wasn't doing that for very long. My addiction is only about 5-6 years old. but it progressed slowly, and then it just suddenly was that bad. And then but sometimes I have my spike days. Sometimes I'll have 2 bottles, or sometimes I'll get closer to 3, and I'll feel really bad about myself. Kind of like I think what Amanda said, the first lady that I heard, where I'll feel really bad about myself when I have a really bad 3-bottle night. But yeah.
I think that there's a couple things you can do. You can start doing the internal work of understanding why you're self-medicating, and then also you could try a slightly higher dose. You could talk to your doctor and say, hey, can I up my dose for a month just to see if this will help get me through this plateau? That's not going to be anything that's harmful, but it sounds to me like if your problem accelerated in that amount of time, whether it was COVID induced or trauma induced or whatever the reasons were for that acceleration of drinking, then you definitely have to work on that problem, with that fear and what that trauma was that alcohol was subduing. Because you also have to remember that if you were doing that for 3 to 5 years or 3 years or even 1 year, and it usually is going to take some time to unravel all of that and to go back in time and sort of understand the whole process, and then also repair the relationships and repair the relationship to yourself. Most importantly is understanding why we did this to ourselves. And please don't be hard on yourself. You all, everybody here has to remember, you are motivated to change and you're doing something amazing. You should be proud of yourself. And you're at the gym, for God's sake. I mean, we're talking about a guy who
I
was
am
doing
a personal trainer.
You're a personal trainer who was doing 40 shots in one day.
Yeah.
I mean, and now you're, maybe having a bottle, sometimes 2 bottles, but I mean, you're completely coherent and you're at the gym. Bravo. I mean,
Yes.
that you should be,
thank you.
You should be congratulating yourself. I don't want any of you to
I
beat
will.
yourself up. The world beats us alcoholics up enough already, and the world beats up people who are unusual or who are having a hard time dealing with emotions without tapping them down with substances. So let's not also add to that whole cluster of being hard on ourselves to ourselves.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much. I won't keep you guys because I am here. I'm still going to listen because that's what I'm going to listen to instead of music. But no, that's good. I'm glad I'm at the gym and I can be quick. But I also wanted to give people hope because it took me, I don't know, I feel like I got down to that massive reduction. It didn't really happen until about 4 to 5 months in, I feel. Yeah. So I guess this is me. I wanted to kind of let people know it does take time. I think 2 months, 3 months in, I was very frustrated because it wasn't happening as fast as I would like, but I plateaued a bit, but I'm still pretty happy about that. And I used to do day drinking, which is the worst. It was such a waste of time. I've gotten it down to only at night, only at night. Even on weekends, I could somehow manage to keep myself busy. And I've been compliant 100% since I started.
That's amazing.
That's all I have.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That is the number one golden rule, and the most important thing is don't ever let that lizard tell you to not comply. Everybody here, you've got to comply with the medication. Otherwise, it's such a step backward. And take it from me, who relapsed in year 5, it ain't pretty. You will relearn the addiction worse than ever before.
That always got me to do it. I was like, I do not want to do anything to my neural pathways. No. But I do drink every day. So I haven't really had any non-drink days, but whatever.
You'll get there.
Also, I had a doctor. I got my liver checked too 6 months because my doctor wanted me to check. Liver's totally fine. I'm totally okay. So that's another thing I wanted to throw out. So
yeah, that's amazing.
Fine.
And you did a remarkable thing in 4 to 5 months, believe me, because most people take 9 to 12 months to reach a form of extinction. There are the anomalies of people that like me, 3 months, suddenly I wasn't thinking about alcohol. But then you have to look at the reality of the fact that it took me another 8 3/4 of a year to get my act together as far as my relationship to alcohol. So I may have reached extinction, biological extinction, but I was still screwed up emotionally. So that's why I want you all to really take a look at the other issue of this, not just, okay, I'm complying, I'm addressing the biological issue of addiction and the compulsive use of alcohol, but at the same time, you've got to do the underlying work, which is something that I never mentioned in my TED Talk or any of that
I
stuff.
will.
And I wish I would have, but you've got to do that. You have to understand why, and you've got to really love yourself and understand the trauma that and the reasons why we drink. That is imperative to recovery.
Thank you so much. That's
You're on a
awesome.
great
And
path.
I also, my husband got to see you on the video, and he was happy. I was like, "That's the lady."
That's awesome.
And I was like, "There she is." And he's like, "Oh wow, okay, let's go to the gym." Okay, anyway,
that's
all right.
awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
You're adorable.
Thanks. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Keep it up. You're doing great.
We have hit the end of your 20 minutes of bonus time, Claudia, and I want to respect that. And if there's any messages from C3 Foundation or anything that's on your mind, I want to give you the chance to just tell people on here.
Just super important. You know, my goal is to get 300 heroes, and we're at 80. We lost a couple in the last few months. You know, I know people are going through a hard time. A lot of people in my industry are affected by the strike, so some people had to stop their donations. So yeah, if we can, I really want to try to get to 100 heroes at some point. This has taken me 3 years to get 80. So if we had 300 heroes, we would not have to fundraise every year. We would actually be able to do some of the projects that we want to do. We wouldn't have to constantly stop work and try to raise $4,000. At this point, we've given up our office, which was peanuts. We've gone completely remote. And we have no overhead expenses. So we're still struggling. So that would be my message, is to say that, you know, if you can become a hero, that would be amazing. And I do give hero, once we get to a certain number of heroes, we do these big meetings, and I meet with everybody, and we have a nice Zoom chat. And you know, there are some perks to being a hero. You get my newsletter and time. You get time, free time with me. But anyway, thank you all very much. I so appreciate these meetings. It warms my heart to see so many new faces and so many new people trying this method. And no matter how frustrating it can seem at times, I can tell you from experience and being talking to medical professionals all over the world, that this really does have the highest rate of success. And it does have to do with you and your compliance, that you adhere to the medication and that you stay connected. And we have found that people who do stay connected for the first 2 years on TSM just fare much better. And that lizard gets quieter and quieter in the brain, and they become stronger and stronger, and you become more yourself. I would encourage all of you, if you have a pressing need for support, to ask somebody in your life. There's got to be somebody. And if you really don't have anybody, get a coach. I've got coaches that are inexpensive, medium priced, all different, both sexes. There's lots of coaches out there, or join these meetings, but you got to have somebody on your side. You have to feel like you're not alone in this whole process. So whatever that takes, invest in yourself, do it yourself, join these meetings, go on the forums, do something. And if you're struggling with compliance, that is the most important thing. And you've got to find a way around that, whether it's setting an alarm every day, getting your your pills everywhere where you can, or making yourself take it at a certain time until you get the hang of it. But you can do it. And I think that all of you on this will find that the longer you're on it, the easier it is, and the more you're really going to feel more comfortable in your own skin. I loved the first question of the social situations. Trust me, social situations are so beautiful now, because I can not only remember them, I can remember my trips, my vacations, but I also remember everything my friends say. And I have deeper connections to people because I'm not masking, I'm not hiding anymore with alcohol. So don't be afraid of that. It's scary at first, but believe me, if I can do it, you can do it. Anybody can do it, because I was the master at pushing stuff down. I was acting on top of it. So believe me, I was an expert at that. And it's so liberating to not feel that I need that anymore. And you will get there, trust me. And it's a beautiful thing. So thank you all
fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you all for sharing your journeys, and I'll be back.
Indeed. Oh, we'll include the links to C3 Foundation and the Hero program on our Discord as well. And I'm going to allow everybody to unmute if you wanted to say thank you in person. There's a lot in the chat, but you're allowed to unmute as you wish, and thank Claudia before she leaves.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Claudia. Phenomenal.
Do you want to wave? Can you wave and say thank you, Miss Claudia?
Thank you, Miss Claudia.
Thank you, Claudia.
You're saving lives, Claudia. You're amazing.
You're so amazing. Thank you, everybody.
I
I just love you all.
Years ago, thank you.
I just adore you all. Thank you. I'll be back again, and I hope to hear happy stories and sad stories and everything else stories, because we're in this together.
Love you, lady.
Love you.
Thank you,
Goodbye,
Claudia.
everybody. Thank you so
Thanks for
much.
hosting, Dave.
You fill my heart with joy, all of you. Thank you. Hang in there. You got this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Legend.
Thank you again.
Good on ya.
Beautiful meeting. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.